Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. The light public housing scheme gets the green light, with lawmakers approving the government's request for $15 billion. Lawmakers expressed shock at the steep fare increases bus companies are demanding. And clashes erupt in Paris after the French government bypasses a legislative vote on raising the retirement age. The Finance Committee has approved the government's request for $15 billion to build the first 4 light public housing projects. But legislators expressed concerns that the occupancy rate could be low for projects in the new territories. Macy Mock reports.
By a vote of 58 in favor and 1 against, with 1 abstention, lawmakers on the Finance Committee approved the government's request for $15 billion to build the first batch of flats under the Light Public Housing, or LPH scheme. These homes are for people currently living in subdivided flats and waiting for permanent public housing. Housing Chief Winnie Ho said 95% of the modular units can be reused, adding that the government has 7 years to consider the next step. Lawmaker Chan Hock Fong wanted to know how much it would cost to deconstruct the LPH units, but Ho did not give a direct answer.
If we spell out all those specifics about how they will be demolished, then there will be more uncertainties in the tendering document. This may lead to much higher costs.
Ho said the deconstructed modules would make future projects cheaper. Roundtable lawmaker Michael Tian came out against building LPH flats in the new territories, citing the low occupancy rates for transitional housing in the region. Other lawmakers were concerned about whether the government can return the sites to developers on time and why air conditioners were not included in the temporary homes. The first 4 LPH projects, which will provide 17,000 units, will cost almost $15 billion. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A consulting body has been established to advise Chief Executive John Lee on developing Hong Kong and seizing global opportunities for the city. The advisors are divided into 3 groups based on their expertise. Joanna Ho reports.
The 34-member Council of Advisors is organized along 3 broad streams. One group dealing with economic advancement and sustainability includes former Chief Secretary and China political advisor Henry Tang, CK Hutchison Chairman Victor Lee, and Airport Authority Chairman Jack Sow. Members responsible for innovation and entrepreneurship include University of Science and Technology President Nancy Yip, Alan Zeman, Chairman of entertainment giant the Lan Kwai Fong Group, and Sheng Chao, founder of on-demand logistics platform Lalamove. Trade Development Council Chairman Peter Lam is among the advisors on regional and global collaborations. Others include former Executive Council convener Bernard Chan and Standard Chartered's Asia Chief Executive Benjamin Hong. The Council's first term took effect immediately and will end on June 30, 2025. Key government officials such as Chief Secretary Eric Chen will also participate. Chief Executive John Lee, who chairs the advisory body, expressed confidence in the members, describing them as distinguished and eminent leaders in their respective fields. The government said the launch of the consulting body is particularly timely and crucial as Hong Kong returns to the international stage following COVID. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
The fare rise sought by Hong Kong's 5 franchised bus companies has shocked some lawmakers. One said people might as well take taxis, while another warned of the heavy financial burden. Macy Mock reports.
Members of the Democratic Party gathered outside government headquarters in Admiralty this morning to protest against a bid by all 5 franchised bus companies to raise fares. The Federation of Trade Unions also voiced its opposition. Bus operators said they lost patronage because of COVID and competition from the NTR. They also need money to expand services. But their arguments cut no ice with lawmakers on the transport panel. Many were shocked by the huge increase demanded. Tourism lawmaker Perry Yu said commuters might as well take taxis. Engineering lawmaker Lo Wai Kwok warned that it's a bad time to add to people's financial burden. Deputy Transport Secretary Ida Lee said the profit projection of bus operators and the ability of passengers to pay will be considered when deciding on fare adjustments.
So there's been a big lag between the costs in this business and inflation and our fare increases. So I understand the sentiment, but there is real justification for why we're needing to put this in at the moment to get the business back to a financially healthy situation.
Several lawmakers acknowledged the challenges that bus operators face and urged the government to help them. Citybus wants a 50% fare increase for Airbuses, 23% more for airport and North Lantau services, and $2 on other routes. New World First Bus asked for a flat fare increase of $2. Longwind is pressing for an 8.5% rise. KMB wants 9.5% more. In New Lantau Bus, 9.8%. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
There was panic and confusion late last night when people heard a loud bang from a power transmission pylon on Kowloon Peak. Across Kowloon and the New Territories, hundreds of people were trapped in lifts. Janice Low reports.
There was panic when people living near a transmission pylon on Kowloon Peak heard a loud bang at around midnight last night. A close-up video of the tower showed lights flickering. A witness said that was unusual, as residents have not seen lights on the pylon. CLP Power, which supplies electricity to Kowloon and the New Territories, said there were several voltage dips in power supply system in Tiwanshan. Electricity wasn't cut off during the disruption between 11:26 p.m. and 12:06 a.m., but people might have noticed lights dimming or flickering. Firefighters rescued hundreds of people trapped in lifts, and police received over 60 cases of false fire alarms in Kowloon and the New Territories. CLP Power apologized for the inconvenience. At daybreak, it was found that plants near the transmission tower had blackened. CLP Power staff investigating the disruption have not found any visible damage to the pylon. Janice Low, HKIBC.
President Xi Jinping travels to Russia next week on his first overseas trip since he was re-elected for a third term. Xi's visit to Moscow at the invitation of President Vladimir Putin will also be his first since Russia invaded Ukraine more than a year ago. The Ukraine crisis is expected to top the agenda in their talks. They will also discuss strategic and bilateral ties during the 3-day visit that begins on Monday. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China will maintain its impartial position on Ukraine and promote peace. Overseas, ugly protests have erupted across France after President Emmanuel Macron bypassed a parliamentary vote on raising the retirement age. Police clashed with demonstrators in the capital, Paris, and other cities. Sachin Cafe reports.
La parole est à Madame la Première ministre.
The French Parliament was in uproar as Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne prepared to announce a government decision to ram through a bill to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 without a vote by lawmakers. left-wing legislators protested, sang the national anthem, and held placards that said no to 64 years. The government resorted to special constitutional powers because there was no guarantee that its unpopular pension reform would win parliamentary approval. Opposition lawmakers disrupted Bone's speech before walking out. They plan to file a no-confidence vote in President Emmanuel Macron's administration. The government decision added more fuel to a crisis that has gripped France for several months. A massive protest erupted in Paris after Parliament was sidelined. The French capital grounded to a halt with thousands of demonstrators blocking roads. By nightfall, there was chaos on the streets. Clashes erupted as police fired tear gas to disperse the crowd. More than 100 people were arrested. A number of people, including one policeman, were injured. There were similar scenes across France with protesters accusing the government of riding roughshod over the wishes of the people. Sachin Katwi, HKIBC.
North Korea says it launched an intercontinental ballistic missile to frighten its enemies. Pyongyang released a video a day after the long-range weapon blasted off on a vertical trajectory to avoid flying over neighboring countries. It traveled 1,000 kilometers during its hour-long flight and reached an altitude of 6,000 kilometers before falling into the sea near the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. The launch took place just hours before talks in Tokyo between Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol. China is reducing the amount of cash that banks must keep as reserves, freeing up to 500 billion yuan. The 25 basis point cut in the reserve requirement ratio takes effect in 10 days' time. The move by the People's Bank of China is the first this year and is aimed at spurring the economic recovery. Following a cut by a similar percentage in December, the average reserve ratio for banks fell to 7.6%. Town Gas says it is expecting a year of optimistic growth after profits rose 5% last year. That was a sharp improvement from a 16.5% plunge in net profits in 2021. But the earnings of $5.2 billion last year still missed targets of up to $6.5 billion. The utility firm blamed a stagnant economy for poor gas sales, which fell 1% in volume. Chief Executive Peter Wong said gas rates have remained stable amid a global energy crisis due to a long-term agreement with an Australian provider. The deal, which commenced in 2006, has translated into savings of $20 billion for customers. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up by 314 points. The top 10 active stocks, Tencent gained $3.40, while Alibaba was up by $1. AIA was up $2.55, while SenseTime was up 26 cents. The forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 8.34, pound sterling 9.52, and the Australian dollar at 5.25. And finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently down by 12 points. On to the weather now. It will be overcast with sunny intervals tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 21 and 26 degrees. Warm and humid with a few showers early next week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.